The MC of our story spent his entire life serving the Empire so he could return to his homeland, but he was met with betrayal and was killed and cast aside. However, thanks to an artifact, he was reborn as a baby in a noble family. He decided to use this chance to take revenge, using his knowledge and the new power he gained as a necromancer. To understand it better, let's go back to where it all began. It is the year 2045, and humanity has been at war against monsters for several years. They have suffered several battles, and it appears that victory is finally feasible with our MC Han Sung as the commander-in-chief of Earth's final defense force. He motivates his men to stand up and fight even in the midst of adversity. Thanks to the tenacity of the fighters, they are able to push the monsters back, leaving just a few of them. Han Sung is glad that they are finally reaching their goal to make Earth free of monsters, but suddenly, a golden magic circle appears in front of him, warping him away on the battlefield. He finds himself in a strange realm with chains holding him down. While wondering where he is, he looks up to see some strange men wearing head covers, talking about how glad they are that they pulled off the summoning ritual. The leader of the strange men, a bald-headed dude, takes off his hoodie and welcomes Han Sung to the Empire. The bald dude tells Sung that they have summoned him to help them defeat the Demon King in order to save the world. Sung is shocked by the sudden request, and he screams at the man, demanding to know what is happening because he is supposed to be back in Korea. Tired of hearing Sung scream, the man hits him with the oath of restraint to make him compliant. Sung screams in pain, and the bald dude tells him not to resist because the magic will only harm him if he tries to act stubborn. Sung has no choice but to keep quiet and hear what the man has to say. The man then tells him that his mission is to defeat the Demon King and save the Empire. The man lets him know that there is a chance of sending him back to his world if he succeeds in doing this. Realizing that he has no choice, Sung agrees to do the man's bidding. With this, Han Sung finds himself in another world where he is required to fight on behalf of the Empire, and he is known as the otherworldly hero. Han Sung did his job excellently by carrying out expeditions, killing enemies, and fulfilling everything that the Empire requests of him. These went on for 10 good years, and before he knew it, he had sacrificed his youth for the sake of defeating the Demon King. After serving with everything he has, Han Sung believes that he is finally free, and he is already dreaming of his return to Korea. But then, the bald-headed dude tells him that he has another mission for him. Han Sung is pissed when he hears this because it wasn't the arrangement they made. The bald dude tells Sung that defeating the Demon King is not the only way to save the Empire because there are still those who oppose the Empire's will, and they must be eliminated. The bald dude says it is important that they stop any other opposition from rising, and he assures him that there is just one more threat to the Empire that he needs to take care of. The bald dude informs him that his next mission is a knight named Badel, who is from the Kingdom of Teutonia. He assures him that once he eliminates Badel, his mission is finally complete, and he will be free. Even though Han Sung is enraged, he realizes that he has no choice. He accepts the mission, and he goes after Badel. After a tough battle between the two, Han Sung comes out victorious, and he pushes his blade into Badel. Badel tells Sung that he didn't expect him to be so foolish, and Sung replies that he had no choice but to take him out. Sung apologizes for his actions, but Badel tells him that he doesn't have to apologize because they are going to betray him too. Just when Sung thinks it is over and he can finally go home, he gets stabbed from behind. A large sword pierces his body from behind, and when he turns around, he realizes that the person behind the sword is Count Brand. The Count makes fun of him, telling him that he has been a good dog to the Empire over the years. He calls him their loyal hunting dog, and Han Sung berates him, saying they never had the intention of sending him home in the first place. Brand replies that they have no reason to send him home because a hunting dog is only good for hunting. Brand cuts him down without mercy, and as he lies in the pool of his own blood, Han Sung admits that he never expected the Empire to let him go easily. But he wasn't expecting them to go to this extent. Nonetheless, he promises himself that he is not going to forget the betrayal. He swears to make the Empire pay by wiping them out. Just then, a bright blue light appears in the hole in his chest, and as he dies, he gets reincarnated immediately into the body of a newborn. Han Sung opens his eyes and realizes that he recognizes the face of his new parents. Standing before him is the continent's greatest necromancer and black mage, Duke Alan Saxon, and his wife Elena. With this in mind, Han Sung figures out that he is in the Empire's headquarters of forbidden magic, Necropolis. It is the same place where the Black Tower is located. Apparently, he was able to get another chance, thanks to the Stone of Reincarnation that he prepared just in case things didn't go his way. Han Sung never thought he would be reborn as the firstborn of the Saxon ducal house, which is one of the Empire's most elite nobility. Han Sung smiles because he has finally found himself in a rich and noble family. Han Sung plans to grow up and learn necromancy so he can finally wipe out every last one of those who betrayed him. He is thinking about this when he hears his father call on the nanny to tell her that the child is not making a sound. The nanny checks him out and mentions that he is breathing normally, but he remains silent. His mother urges the nanny to check very well, but deep down, Sung knows that there is nothing wrong with him. He is not a kid who will start tearing up just because he is reborn. The nanny takes him, and after checking on Sung, she assures his parents that he is quite fine. Saxon then mentions his worry that a tearless child is considered an ill omen. The nanny tells him that he has nothing to worry about, but she assures him that she can make him cry if that is what he truly wants. All they need to do is spank his butt, and this is what the nanny does. But Sung remains mute even with the repeated strikes on his butt. Saxon cannot believe that they have just given birth to a stubborn child, and his wife teases him, saying he must have inherited his strong will. His mother takes back the child, but instead of spanking him, she rubs his back. The moment his mother's warm hand touches him, Han-sung realizes that he hasn't felt such warmth in a very long time. The warmth of her mother's hand radiated the love he had missed over the years, and before he realizes it, he starts crying. Before they know it, 8 years fly by, and Han-sung, who is now known as Dale, is always spending his time in the study room. Elena tells her husband that Dale's favorite thing to do is to study since he was 4 years old. Saxon smiles, saying Dale is interested in studying because he takes after his wife. He adds that Dale appears to be interested in magic. Elena then asks Alan if he has not forgotten the promise he made to her about refraining from teaching their son necromancy. Alan assures his wife that he has not forgotten, and he tells his wife that he has already prepared a gift for Dale's birthday, which is coming up the next day. Suddenly, they hear a knock on the door, and a maid enters to call them concerning Dale. The two rush out to find Dale on the floor, with mana emanating from his body. His mother rushes over to check on him, and he assures his mother that he is fine. Alan is shocked that Dale can release mana when he is barely 8 years old. Alan walks up to Dale with a stern face, and he demands to know if he just released mana from his body. This question catches Dale off guard, but he was already expecting it because it is pretty obvious that his father would find it strange. Dale is too stunned to speak, and he fears that his father would suspect that something is strange. Dale is thinking of what to say when his father pats him on the head, telling him that he is proud of him because he showed that he is truly his son. Alan mentions his regret that he won't be able to teach him necromancy. Dale is shocked to hear this because he doesn't think there is a way for him to enact his revenge if he doesn't learn necromancy. His mother then tells him to return to his room, assuring him that the maids will take care of the mess that he made. Dale smiles and starts heading to his room. But deep down, he is not pleased. As he walks away, Alan tells Elena that he has found the perfect gift for Dale. The next day, the banquet starts rocking with esteemed guests who have come to grace Dale's birthday. All the nobles are excited to be there because the ducal is really important. Meanwhile, Dale hasn't been presented to the guests yet, and he is holed up on the hall's second floor. Dale cannot believe that a lot of nobles have gathered just because of his birthday. Dale finds it hard to adjust to because he was treated coldly in his past life. Dale then thinks about why his mana is rampant. Apparently, he saw a book that was written about his past self, and this is what enraged him, causing his mana to erupt out of control. Nonetheless, Dale thinks it would be a waste if he couldn't learn necromancy. He is stuck with how he can convince his father, but he heard him talking about a certain gift. He thinks of trying to convince his father to change his gift to an opportunity to learn necromancy. But he believes that this would be too difficult. Just then, his mother shows up, and she is accompanied by a strange person whose face is covered. Dale asks his mother who is with her, and she introduces her as an elder of the Blue Magic Tower. Apparently, she is a water mage, and she takes off her head covering to show her face. She turns out to be an elf named Sephia. With a bright smile on her face, Sephia tells Dale that she is looking forward to working with him. Dale is surprised that he will be taking on an elf from the water tribe to learn magic, which basically means he is stuck with the water element. Water magic is primarily focused on defense and disruption, and it becomes very clear to him that his mother doesn't want him to learn dark magic at all. After the introduction, Sophia asks to speak with Dale privately. Dale follows her outside, where she tells him that she is aware that he is disappointed not to be learning dark magic. Dale is shocked to hear this, and he asks the lady how she knows this. Sephia replies that it is pretty obvious because he would want to learn his father's necromancy, the magic of darkness. Sophia then tells him that this is difficult because Alan promised Elena before they married that he wouldn't pass on his dark arts to their child. Even at their wedding, they wore white instead of black just to make sure that his wife was satisfied. After this vow, Sophia says it is pretty hard to learn dark magic, but she tells Dale that she can convince Elena to reconsider. She promises to do this if Dale is willing to follow her guidance. Dale is shocked to hear this, and he asks Sophia if she doesn't see necromancy as trash magic that shouldn't be practiced, since Sophia is an elf who values the laws of nature. Sophia smiles and tells Dale that the priests who bring the dead back to life are no different. She mentions that both resurrection and necromancy look the same to her. Dale is shocked to see that Sophia is not like the regular elves, and he concludes that Sophia might end up being a pretty good master. Sophia then suggests that they start the first lesson of their master-disciple relationship. Sophia mentions that she is aware that Dale has already formed a fragment of his mana circle. She tells him that his first goal will be to expand it and complete the first circle. This makes Dale remember that most of the spells he has read about require a person to at least have their first circle. Sophia tells him to place his hand on his chest and focus. Dale figures out that he is in a much different world from Earth because in this world, there is an abundance of mana. However, it is impossible to directly handle raw mana unless the being is a dragon. To counter this, a filter is needed, which is also known as a mana heart circle. The process is to gather the scattered fragments of the mana circle around the heart, assemble them, and then rotate them steadily. It is basically like a process of creating a mana flow path in the heart. Sophia puts him through the process, telling him to carefully rotate the mana around his heart. She urges him not to rush it because the process usually takes around a month, but she hasn't finished saying this when Dale informs her that he has done it. Sophia is shocked to hear this because it is considered impossible to form a circle in minutes of training. This basically tells Sophia that Dale appears to be a natural-born prodigy. Dale shows his master the circle he created, and she asks him if he can release mana through the circle. Dale replies that he is going to try his best because releasing mana through the circle is considered a difficult task for beginners. However, things are different with him this time around, since he is determined to get his revenge. Since he inherited Alan's talent for magic, his body naturally accepts mana. He figures out that he might have the chance to learn other magic types, aside from water magic. Dale then focuses on drawing out his mana to his fingertips. He forms it and shapes it into the sharpest fragment, which he wants to use in piercing the Empire. Using this, he is able to form an ice spell, leaving Sophia impressed. She knows that mana usually collapses once it leaves the body, but Dale has managed to crystallize it to make it into a proper ice bolt. On the other hand, Dale thinks the bolt might not be strong enough because he merely focused on maintaining its form. Dale fires the ice bolt at a tree, and the seemingly weak ice bolt shatters the tree pretty easily. Sophia is stunned and, at the same time, horrified when she sees this. She cannot believe that the ice bolt is both sharp and solid. She doesn't want to believe that Dale is just an 8-year-old kid because it should be impossible for him to achieve such a scary form. This leaves her questioning just who exactly Dale is. While his master is standing there, horrified, Dale is smiling like he didn't just do something mind-blowing. Sophia is impressed because she didn't expect that Dale would be able to display such potent magic. Dale notices the strange expression on his master's face, and he asks her if he has done something wrong. Sophia turns around, still stunned to speak because Dale was able to combine the 3 formulas known as the golden ratio of military magic, like it's nothing. Sophia finally speaks up to assure Dale that he has nothing to worry about because she finally understands why Alan finds it regrettable that he can't teach his son necromancy. After the lesson is over, Sophia meets with Alan to tell him that she can't teach Dale magic. This shocks Alan, and he demands to know what she means by this. He believes that she should be more interested because Dale reached the first circle, but Sophia tells him that as soon as Dale reached the first circle, he used a perfect lethal spot in no time. Alan is shocked to hear this, and Sophia continues, saying it was hard to believe that an 8-year-old cast such high-precision magic. Sophia then tells Alan the bitter truth, and this is the fact that Dale is talented in killing. It finally dawns on Alan that Sophia is an elder of the Blue Magic Tower. It is basically in their vow not to push violent activities. However, Sophia says she is not refusing to teach Dale because of her ideals. In fact, she was tempted to guide him to the right path with her very own hands. Alan urges her not to reject an opportunity to teach Dale. Sophia then tells the Lord that Dale appears to have already locked his mind on the type of magic that he wants to learn. This gets Alan curious, and Sophia mentions that she has heard about his love story with Elena. Sophia says she is aware of the vow he made with his wife, but she urges him not to decide his child's future because of this. She mentions that Dale is someone with such great talent, which means he would waste away if he didn't learn the proper magic. Outside the room, Dale is trying to eavesdrop, but he can't hear anything. However, he is pretty sure that they are talking about him. Even Dale wasn't expecting his first show of magic to be that powerful, because even Sophia appeared to have been pretty surprised. Dale figures out that he has to find a way to put his power under control. He is lost in his thoughts until his uncle Helmut shows up in the room. Dale is surprised to see his uncle, and he asks him where he has been. Helmut replies that he was on an expedition as part of his duties to protect the family. Helmut raises Dale up, while telling him that he has been away killing monsters. Dale rejoices at the arrival of his uncle, and he asks him if he has been in the dungeon. Apparently, this world has a problem with the emergence of dungeons, and it is considered something of a huge matter. Since the time when the Demon King reigned, monsters emerging have caused serious damage to civilians and the environment. To curb this, knights of each domain devote their time to clearing unexplored dungeons within the Demon King's territory. They are also tasked with eliminating monsters that have overflowed through dungeon breaks. By all accounts, the situation in the Duchy of Saxon is worse than in the other territories. And the sole reason for this is Dale. Basically, after his past self defeated the Demon King, Duke Saxon was ordered to make the Demon King's territory into a territory of the Empire by subduing the monsters that reside there. To put it simply, it is a situation of leftover dumping. Dale then urges Helmet to make sure he takes care of himself at all times. Helmet is surprised that Dale is worried about him, but he is glad that his nephew is in good condition. Just then, Alan steps out of his chambers and he tells his brother that he appreciates his work in the recent dungeon raid. At the same time, Elena shows up, leaving Dale wondering why his mother has come. Elena walks to her son to commend him for reaching the first circle. Elena then tells him that he is free to tell his father anything if he wants to. Dale takes a moment to think about this, and the first thing his mind goes to is about necromancy. He thinks it might appear cunning if he asks his father to teach him necromancy, but at the same time, he can't think of anything that kids of his age would ask for. After thinking for a moment, Dale speaks up, saying he wants a little sister. This shocks his parents, and they manage to pull themselves together to tell Dale that they are going to try their best. That night, Dale lies on his bed thinking of just how hard it is for him to pretend that he is a kid. In addition, he is a bit tired because he used magic. He soon sleeps off, but he finds himself dreaming about Brand and those who betrayed him. Brand threatens to find him and wipe him off the face of the planet. This sudden rage and fear force Dale to suddenly wake up, and the mana emanating from his body makes him feel like his heart is about to explode. It then dawns on him that his body is currently undergoing the phenomenon known as mana rampage. Dale is pissed because the Empire is ready to keep trying until they make sure that there is nothing of him left. Dale steps out of the house to get fresh air, hoping that this will help suppress the mana rampage, but it keeps getting worse. He finds himself in the woods, and while he is trying to get a hold of the situation, Sephia appears behind him. Sephia admits that Dale is a talented child, but at the same time, she senses that there is danger. She places her hand on Dale's chest to help him control the magic because she knows that once Malice takes him over, there won't be an opportunity for him to turn back. With Sophia's help, the mana rampage is suppressed, and Dale heaves a sigh of relief. Sophia then explains to him that the essence of magic is the mirror in his heart. This is basically why each mage has different individuality, even though they use the same magic. Sophia lets Dale know that his talent in magic is to take people's lives, which makes it a very dangerous talent. However, this is also why she finds it interesting to be the one teaching Dale. She gives Dale a book, and he is shocked when he realizes that it is a book on necromancy. Sophia smiles while telling Dale that she is going to be his teacher, and at the same time, she wishes him a very happy birthday. Dale is blown away by this, and he couldn't suppress his emotions, forcing him to hug Sophia really tight. Some days later, Sophia and Dale head to the Northern Gate Plains. They find a rabbit running around in the snow, and Sophia tells him to recall the times he went hunting with his father. Dale follows his master's instruction, and he constructs an ice bolt that he hurls at the rabbit standing in the distance. The ice bolt clears everything in its path, including the rabbit. Sophia is surprised that Dale just took a life, but his hand is not wavering. Sophia then asks him why the same spell varies infinitely, even if wielded by different mages. Dale replies that he has no idea why this is the case. Sophia tells him that it is simply because one's magic is ultimately a mirror reflecting their mind. Sophia mentions that it materializes what lies in one's heart through mana particles. Basically, magic reveals the landscape of the inner self. Dale remains attentive, and Sophia continues by saying terms like firewalls are merely stepping stones of imagination to solidify a mental image. She mentions that the magic taught in the magic towers is no different from this. It is known that the red magic tower values order through strength, while the blue magic tower values order through harmony. Each magic tower's philosophy is transferred into the form of its magic. This basically means that the philosophy emphasized by each magic tower forms the foundation of its magic system. Aside from the red and blue magic towers, there also exist the black, white, and green magic towers. However, Sophia decides to put the lesson on the towers to a pause because she believes that Dale is too young to learn about them. On all accounts, the foundation of necromancy is to raise a zombie, which is the art of animating a corpse using mana strings to control it. They are required to tie mana threads to the head, spine, and knees. Dale follows this process, and he successfully raises the dead rabbit in front of him. Sophia is impressed by this, and she tells him to move on to the next mission. Dale follows his master's instruction, and he smashes his hand into the ground to create a large magic circle. From the magic circle, he creates a frozen armor that covers the zombie rabbit. Cephia is impressed with Dale's execution of the frozen armor, which she calls quite decent. Cephia then decides that it is time they test the defense. She conjures an ice bolt and hurls it at the rabbit, leaving a big explosion, but the armor on the rabbit is able to deflect Sophia's attack. Dale is proud of the armor he created, and Sophia commends him. Sophia then asks Dale if there is something he wants because he looks like someone who wants to say something. Dale says yes, and he tells Sophia that he wants her to teach him how to better utilize the water magic attribute too. Dale's smile fades when Sophia rejects the request, and he asks her why she is saying no. Sophia lets him know that what he just performed is the very basic form of water magic. Unlike the other magic attributes, the water attribute demands deeper insight and higher levels of understanding as it develops. It is well known that for most beginners, learning one type of magic is quite difficult. Those who can handle two types of magic are known as the dual mages. Sophia laughs at Dale, telling him that it is impossible for him to be a dual mage at his age. Sophia adds that it looks like excessive ambition, the way she looks at it. Dale is surprised to hear this because he doesn't think Sophia would still think he is not talented enough with everything he has shown so far. Dale then tells Sophia that it would be better if they end the day's lesson right there. That night, Dale heads to the study with the intention of proving himself so that Sophia will have no choice but to teach him the magic water attribute. Dale stays awake all night, and the next morning, Sophia can clearly see that he didn't get any form of sleep. Dale tells the lady that he stayed up all night to prepare something, and Sophia urges him not to overexert himself. Dale takes this into consideration, and he unleashes a magic circle while targeting the zombie rabbit. He puts his spell into action, and the rabbit is able to unleash ice explosions from its body. However, Dale doesn't stop there as he proceeds with corpse explosion, shattering the rabbit's corpse to make a loud bang. Sophia cannot believe her eyes when she realizes that Dale just combined both water and dark attributes into one. With a proud smile on his face, he asks Sophia if she now sees him as someone who can wield both water magic and dark magic at the same time. While Dale is standing proud because of what he just did, Sophia is still trying to understand what just happened in front of her. This is basically an attack method that she has never seen before. Mixed with the ice explosion from the frozen armor, the corpse explosion was able to attain a larger area of effect. Sophia notices that this didn't end there because the ice and bone fragments were blasted off like blades. She realizes that the magic is solely devoted to killing. She could clearly see that it was something that would be wielded by one who had devoted their entire life to the battlefield. Sophia is curious about what kind of form Dale's mental image is taking. The two are still in training when Helmet shows up. Helmet is back from another raid, and he says that he and his men were able to subdue a small group of monsters this time around. Helmet tells his nephew that his men, the Black Cavalry, had no choice but to work really hard. The Black Cavalry are the warriors who wield lances covered in aura, and they are undoubtedly the best in the dukedom of Zaxxon. Their captain, Helmet, is also one of the 7 swordsmasters on the continent. Dale smiles at his uncle, asking him if he still remembers that he promised to teach him sword techniques. Dale is glad that he has Helmet on his side because it makes things easy for him to learn sword techniques. Helmet laughs, assuring his nephew that he hasn't forgotten. After their brief conversation, Helmet and his troops leave. Shortly afterward, Sophia also tells Dale that it is time for them to return to the castle. That night, Sophia shocks Alan by telling him that Dale has mastered his first circle in necromancy and water magic. Alan is present with his wife, and he reminds Sophia that all they asked her to teach Dale is water magic. Sophia says she is aware of this, but as his mentor, she wanted to teach him whatever it is that he wished to learn. Sophia reminds Alan that she already told him that his son is interested in learning more than just water magic. Elena then asks Sophia if she will be willing to teach Dale water magic if he asks for it. Sophia assures Elena that she will make sure that she takes care of Dale. After their meeting, she stands up to leave. Before stepping out of the door, she turns around to tell Alan that she is sorry to have broken the promise she made with him. Elena laughs out loud, saying Dale is basically an extraordinary kid, which is why he became a dual mage at a very young age. However, Elena confesses that Dale's ability to wield such incredible magic at a young age scares her. Alan uses the opportunity to express his desire to teach Dale necromancy. Alan says he wishes to give Dale the strength that he needs to withstand the duties of being a lord. In addition, this just gives him the opportunity to have a talented disciple. Alan manages to tell Elena that his deepest desire is to make sure that their son inherits his legacy. Elena then replies that the public's view on necromancy is poor, which is why people fear it and call it the magic of death. Elena says she would have stopped her husband from teaching him necromancy, but she wants him to train Dale to become a necromancer who would ignore others' perception of the dark magic. Alan is relieved to hear this, and the two share a passionate hug. Alan assures Elena that he is going to train Dale to become the best. With this, Alan takes over his son's necromancy training. On the first day of training, he scolds Dale for reviving lives without knowing what he was controlling. Dale is disappointed in himself, but there is nothing else he can do because that is everything that Sophia taught him. Alan then takes Dale to the magic workshop located underground in the castle. Alan tells Dale that he is not allowed to use the basic necromancy spell as long as he remains his teacher. Alan tells Dale that the first thing he needs to do is memorize the bone and muscle structures of all life forms. Alan packs a bunch of books for Dale's use, and Dale assures his father that he is ready to follow his instructions. After he had memorized everything in the books given to him, he was finally allowed by his father to practice magic. Dale is excited about the opportunity given to him to learn from his father. Shortly afterward, Dale finds himself staring at a goblin's corpse. Alan tells him that an untrained warlock can only make a swordmaster's corpse move like a zombie, but a skilled mage will be able to make an ordinary soldier into a death knight. Alan tells Dale that lying in front of him is an ordinary goblin corpse, and he is excited to see how he is going to move it. Dale then gets on with the task, but he can clearly see that it is harder to control a goblin, unlike the rabbit that has a lesser number of bones. Dale sees this as a complex way of trying to control a complicated puppet. He manages to raise the goblin, but it is hard for him to make it move the way he wants. He starts wondering what it is that he is doing wrong. He finds himself in a tough situation with no idea of what to do. Alan then taps his shoulder from behind, telling him that he wasn't wrong to have hardened the goblin's body by accelerating post-mortem rigidity, but at the same time, it has a side effect of limiting the movement of the corpse. Alan then urges Dale to watch him do it, and Alan unleashes a dark aura that immediately gets the goblin moving. Alan tells him that the ribcage is there to protect the internal organs, but since the target is already dead, there is no need to protect the internal organs. Alan tells him that he needs to understand his target's structure and then adapt them to his own needs. The goblin transforms into a more scary version of itself, and Alan tells his son that what he just did is the foundation of black magic. Dale is completely blown away, and he asks his father to teach him the mindset of the black magic tower. Alan calmly tells his son that the truth about everything is that all he needs exists within death. This is why they need to understand the weight of life if they plan to reach the truth. While he is receiving his father's lecture, Dale suddenly finds himself thinking about how he once killed a dude who was begging to be spared. His father notices that his mind is somewhere else, and he asks him if he is fine, and he assures his dad that he is good. Soon afterward, the word that Alan is teaching his son dark magic starts to fly around. This caused a huge ruckus in the Empire because Alan literally broke his word in teaching his son dark magic. In addition to this, Dale has the entire Empire watching him. A few weeks later, Dale also engages in swordsmanship training with his uncle. As they go at each other with the wooden sword, Helmut displays an expression of satisfaction with Dale's improvement. Helmut is shocked when Dale suddenly disarms him of his sword. Helmut admits that Dale's attack is not bad. Dale, on the other hand, believes that his uncle intentionally dropped his word because there is no way a knight like him would easily lose to a kid. Helmut tells him that he didn't do it intentionally because Dale used the sword techniques that are used in actual battle, which would have ended the life of a normal person. Helmut tells Dale that his swordsmanship is on a really impressive level, and he feels sad that Dale is a mage. Helmut tells Dale that he has no reason to train really hard, since there are always escort knights attached to mages to protect them. However, Dale argues that he has a reason to push himself to the extreme because it would be disgraceful for the Duke's son to rely on guards. Deep down, Dale thinks it would be bad for him to pass on an opportunity to learn swordsmanship directly from Helmut, one of the 7 swordsmasters of the continent. Helmut hears this and he gives out a loud laugh, saying Dale has given a really magnificent answer. Helmut says he would be rejoicing if he had a son like Dale. Dale blushes really hard, saying he never knew he would earn praise from Helmut. Moments later, Elena shows up, and Dale asks her why she is out in the cold. Elena smiles, saying she is out to see just how hard her son is working. In addition, she is there to share some news with Dale. Elena asks him if he remembers the birthday present that he asked for, which is his request to get a little sister. Elena smiles, while telling him that he now has a responsibility to take care of his sibling. Dale is happy to hear this, and he assures Elena that he will. 10 months after this, Elena gives birth to a bouncy baby girl, and Dale is the most excited brother in the world. He cannot believe that he finally has a sister, who is incredibly cute. Elena asks him if he will be willing to hold her, and this startles him. However, Elena urges him not to be shy as she places the child in his hands. After carrying the girl, Dale realizes that there is nothing too difficult about it. Elena blushes hard when telling Dale that it is surprising that his sister doesn't cry when he is the one holding her, whereas she screams when her mother carries her. Alan then asks his son how he feels after carrying his sibling. He asks him if she is light like a feather, but Dale says no. He claims that she is actually heavy, and Alan uses this to tell him that he finally knows what the weight of life feels like. Alan urges Dale never to forget about the weight of life. Alan then reminds Dale that it is time for his lesson because Sophia is waiting for him. Dale meets with Sophia, who tells him that the lesson for the day is combat practice. In fact, they are going to be engaging in real combat. Sophia tells Dale that he is free to come at her, and he should not hesitate in doing so. Dale acknowledges this, and they both unleash their magic circles. Sophia is interested in seeing how much Dale has improved so far. Dale hurls an ice bolt at Sophia, but she easily smashes this because it was too slow. Sophia catches Dale's next attack easily too, while scolding him for going easy on her. She orders him to put a barrier, and then she throws an ice bolt at him. The ice bolt hits, but Dale is lucky to have blocked it because it would have resulted in a serious injury for him. On the other hand, Sophia is impressed that he was able to form an ice armor just in time to block the hit. She commends him, and then tells him to have another go at her. Dale places his hand on the ground to raise a wall of ice, shocking Sophia. She can't believe that Dale literally cast an ice wall in the middle of a battle. Dale was able to increase the ice's density by enhancing the mana structure. However, she is confused as to why the boy decided to cast a defensive spell. Sophia assumes that Dale might actually need a break after her last attack. Suddenly, Sophia realizes that there is more to the ice wall. Dale has infused it with frost explosion, and before Sophia realizes what is going on, Dale detonates the ice wall, and it shatters right in front of her face, shooting out ice shards like grenades. Dale cannot believe that his spell actually worked. The spell he used condenses the sturdy ice wall even further than it already was, causing it to explode. Because the ice molecules had already been strengthened before compression, it became a grenade. Dale smiles, believing that his master would have a hard time dodging the strike. His smile immediately fades away when he sees his master's body perforated like a basket. He frantically calls his master, and before he loses his mind, his master appears beside the mangled body, which turns out to be an illusion. Dale reveals that he was already scared, and Sophia commends him, saying he used an impressive technique. It turns out that Sophia suffered a slight cut on her cheek, and she says she never expected that a mere first circle mage will have what it takes to wound an elder like her. With a low voice, Dale tells Sophia that he never had the intention of hurting her, and he assures her that she is aware of this. In fact, she is grateful that Dale was able to cut her, and this shocks Dale. Sophia says the wound is a sign that Dale trusted his master enough to have used his full strength. As his master, she tells Dale that she is prouder than she can express. Dale is surprised to hear this, and Sophia lets him know that he is an excellent kid and student. She pats him on the head, asking him how he was able to come up with such a magic formula, and Dale says it is all thanks to what Sophia taught him. Later on, Alan notices the wound on Sophia's cheek, and he asks her about it. Sophia confesses that she got careless during her training with Dale, and this was when she got the wound. Sophia tells Alan that Dale's formula was extraordinarily sharp. Alan subtly tells Sophia that he appreciates everything she is doing, but Sophia says it is her joy to teach such a talented student like Dale. Alan then asks if it is fine by her if he makes one more request. Sophia tells him to go ahead, and Alan reveals that they have received reports that a group of orcs crossed the mountain range into their territory. Alan mentions that it is something a small cavalry can handle, but he wants to send Dale into the battle. Sophia is shocked to hear this, and she tries to protest against this, saying Dale is not ready yet. Alan then replies that Dale won't be on the front lines, but suddenly he stands up to say Dale is expected to defend the territory, and as the Duke's heir, he should understand this responsibility. With a stern face, Alan lets Sophia know that Dale is no exception. Sophia then asks the man what he wants her to do. Alan reveals his intention to entrust Dale with his artifact, and he wants Sophia to guide him until Dale finally learns to control his power. Talking about an artifact, it is an artifact that is imbued with immense power and will. This can only be used by offering either mana or life itself as payment, and the stronger the artifact, the more dangerous and uncontrollable it becomes. There are cases where the artifact has even proved to be fatal. However, the House of Saxon has long mastered the art of handling such powers. Alan then takes Dale to the family's vault while being escorted by Sophia. Alan tells Dale that he needs to prepare for the upcoming battle, and this surprises Dale. Deep down, he is glad that he is finally getting the chance to engage in a battle. Alan informs him that he will be joining the subjugation force to wipe out an orc horde. However, before leaving for the battle, Alan thinks it is right for him to learn how to control the power of darkness that is being wielded in the family. They step into the vault, and Dale is blown away. Alan tells him that the items he is looking at are the Demon King artifacts that the family manages. Alan says they have had them since their ancestors conquered the Demon King's domain. Alan urges him never to compare them to an ordinary artifact, and Dale says he can actually feel the intense mana radiating from them. Alan reinforces his statement by saying the artifacts all contain immense power and are extremely dangerous. Alan urges him not to touch anything until he learns to control them. Suddenly, Alan notices that Dale has vanished beside him, leaving him to wonder where Dale has disappeared to. Moments earlier, Dale was thinking about getting a suitable artifact when he heard a particular artifact speak out to him, saying he could sense that he had people he wanted to take revenge on. The artifact lets Dale know that he can sense Alan's hatred, and he assures Dale that he can help him get the revenge that he desires. Surprisingly, there are other artifacts begging Dale to choose them because they are ready to grant him what he wants. Dale realizes that the artifacts are basically resonating with the hatred he harbors inside him. However, he is not impressed with the artifacts he has seen so far because he wants something far stronger. Suddenly he spots a cloak beside him, shocking him because he hadn't seen the cloak before. Suddenly it dawns on him that standing in front of him is a shadow cloak. During the hero's era, Duke Berta, a general in the Demon King's army, had used the shadow cloak, which is a top-grade artifact. The cloak has the ability to give form to shadows, which is why Dale's past self had a hard time facing Berta. This catches his attention and he immediately puts it on. When Alan and Sophia finally see him, they scream out in shock, and Dale suddenly finds himself in the Shadow Realm with the cloak screaming at him that he is hungry. Dale is blown away, and he concludes that he has gotten his hands on an impressive shadow. Apparently, Berta, who wielded the cloak in the past, could summon storms of shadow and move darkness as if it were a living thing. To control it, the wielder has to totally make the shadow submit. Dale can sense that the shadow is not ready to easily submit itself to him. On the outside, all Alan and Sophia can see is a giant ball of dark shadow. Since Dale has been stuck in the Shadow Realm for quite a while, Sophia asks Alan if they need to be worried. Alan replies that if Dale fails to control the shadow, he will lose his sanity and be devoured by the shadow. This gets Sophia really worried, and she asks Alan what they are supposed to do. Alan says the only option they have is to pull him out by force. Just as he finishes saying this, they almost get blinded by a bright light, and when it subsides, the Shadow Realm has dissipated, with Dale Aura farming in front of them. Alan is shocked, and he calls Dale's name. Dale answers with a smile on his face, assuring his father that he is fine. Sophia also rushes over to tell Dale that he had her worried. Dale laughs, saying he is unaffected because it only stung a little. Sophia is shocked because she can't understand how a child like Dale is able to escape the Shadow Realm unscathed. Sophia knows that the artifact is a really powerful one, and Dale conquered it like it was nothing. Dale excitedly tells his father that he has one question. His father tells him to speak on, and with a bright smile, Dale asks his father if he can try on the other artifacts. This question leaves Sophia and Alan completely horrified, while also believing that they must have heard wrong. However, Alan is not about to hold back his son's strength, and he tells him to go ahead. This ultimately began Dale's exploration of the artifact vault, and it took him all day and night. A few days after this, Dale shows up at the training ground wearing the shadow cloak, leaving Helmut totally shocked. Helmut asks him if he is fine because he heard that the artifact is one that is difficult to control. Dale assures Helmut that he is fine because all he suffered was a slight prickling sensation. Helmut is impressed to hear this, and Dale says the artifact appears to have been lonely because the moment it sensed Dale, it immediately clung to him. Dale takes the situation so lightly, saying the shadow cloak probably wants to be his friend. Helmut cannot believe that his nephew is referring to something as dangerous as the cloak as lonely. Helmut tells Dale that he is a kind-hearted young man. Dale appreciates his uncle's compliments, and he tells him that he has a request. Helmut asks him what he wants, and Dale says he would like to have a real sparring match as a combat practice. Helmut takes a moment to think about this before agreeing and assures Dale that he is not going to disappoint him. Deep down, Dale is worried that he might mess things up because Helmut is one of the 7 swordmasters, which makes him very dangerous. His aura alone is quite intimidating for Dale. Helmut senses this, and he tells Dale not to fear because he will face him using only basic swordsmanship with no aura involved. Dale is not impressed with the fact that Helmut is trying to go easy on him when it is a knight's ideal to fight sincerely. Basically, Dale's goal in the spar is to practice using the shadow cloak. Dale figures out that the power of the weapons he can form from the cloak's shadow creatures will determine the artifact's true worth, and to know this, the fight against his uncle is absolutely necessary. Dale unleashes one of the shadow techniques, Shadow Rush, and he aims directly for Helmut. Even with what appears to be an overwhelming dark aura, Helmut is able to cut it down. Dale is impressed that Helmut was able to shatter the attack with just his pure strength. Helmut is also impressed that Dale made the first move and informs him that it is time he charges straight at him. Helmut dashes toward Dale and swings his sword really hard, but he jumps backward, leaving his shadow power to absorb the strike. Dale almost catches Helmut with a surprise attack, but Helmut also evades this, thanks to his experience. Helmut then swings a powerful strike at Dale, but to his surprise, Dale is able to block it. With sweat dripping down his face, Dale finally understands the difference between a regular weapon and a top-tier artifact. However, Helmut is not done with him, as he dashes toward him again. The knights watching this are left in total disbelief because no one among them has ever lasted more than 2 exchanges against Helmet. This is when it dawns on them that Dale is miles ahead of them. A few days later, which is the day of the deployment, Elena approaches Dale with the intention of speaking with his father so he won't be deployed to face the dangerous orcs. However, Dale tells his mother that she has nothing to worry about because his uncle and father will be there with him. Elena expresses her concern, saying Dale can get hurt during the raid. Dale calls his mother's reasoning to the fact that he has to get stronger so that he can bear the weight of the dukedom. Dale says he needs to get better so that when the time comes, he will be able to protect his mother, father, and his little sister, Liz. Dale mentions that he needs the experience to get stronger so he can protect his family, and he urges his mother to allow him. After hearing his reason to join the battle, his mother finally agrees. Dale gets on his horse and he assures his mother that he will be back very soon. Early that morning, Alan is informed that the troops are ready for departure, and he tells Dale to give the marching order. Dale is shocked to hear this, and he is forced to ask again, just in case his father made a mistake. Alan tells him that the Great Cavalry Corps will one day be his command because they are basically his knights. Dale is left stunned, and he finally accepts the reality that things are going to be different. Dale rides in front to meet the troops, and he gives a roaring order for them to move forward. The soldiers reply to the order with thunderous support for their young master. For the operation that they are going on, there are 250 cavalrymen present, and the elite ranger unit, which is usually stationed in the White Mountains, known as the Winter Wardens, will also be participating. According to the scout, they will be going up against at least 1,000 orcs. It turns out that the orcs have crossed the mountains, heading upstream of the Saxon River to escape the cold and hunger. It is pretty obvious that they are going to move downstream soon enough. Alan mentions that they are going to strike the orcs by crossing the lower Saxon River and laying an ambush for the orcs. Since there is only one way for the troops to cross the river successfully, Sophia shows up on the scene, revealing that she will form a bridge of ice. Dale is surprised when he sees his master, and he is impressed that she came all the way from where she is to help the group even though she is a preacher of peace. In no time, Sophia constructs the bridge, and she tells Alan that he and his troops can now pass. As Alan rides past her, she wishes him victory in the forthcoming battle. Dale also rides past his master with a bright smile on his face. As they depart, Sophia cannot believe that she is seriously worried about Dale. Not long after this, the Winter Wardens made their move at the orc base. They launched a series of long-range attacks at the orcs, leaving their base in ruins. Some of the orcs died from the flame arrows, and Helmet orders the cavalry battalions to move in when the orcs are disoriented. He orders them to form a wedge formation and charge at the orcs. Helmet turns to Dale, asking him how he feels about the attack order, but Dale is busy thinking about the formation that was just deployed. He figures out that they are moving at a speed of about 40 kilometers per hour, and factoring in the combined weight of the riders and armor, the impact force will be immense. The speed, coupled with the 3 to 4 meter lances locked in place, gives Dale the confidence that the orcs have no chance. Dale finally speaks up, saying the battle is one-sided, and Alan confirms this, saying he is currently witnessing the power of the cavalry corps that the duchy takes pride in. However, Helmet tells him not to relax yet because it is only the beginning. As the troops rush in towards the orcs' defenses, Helmet says the ambush might have worked, but it is not enough to annihilate the orcs. Helmet says they are going to retreat, reorganize, and then finish the job with rotating charges. Helmet fires the signal, and the troops recognize this as their order to retreat. The troops then turn backward and start to return to base, but the orcs are pissed already. They start throwing their spears at the retreating soldiers, catching them off guard. One of the knights is thrown off by this, and this pisses Dale off. Dale cannot believe that the wounded soldier is already considered a lost cause by his father and uncle. He turns around in anger, asking them why they are ignoring the fact that the enemy is approaching one of their soldiers. The two are too stunned to speak, and Dale starts to think of a solution to the problem. He figures out that he will be late if he tries to get to the wounded soldier by riding to him. Dale realizes that the only solution is to be able to pierce an orc's tough skin with a single shot. It is known that an orc's skin is thicker than that of other monsters, which means Dale will have to modify his ice bolt formula. He figures out that adding a high-precision projectile formula for sniping will help with this. He also plans to add a ballistic trajectory equation for stability. With everything planned out in his head, he creates an ice bolt with a Lapua Magnum formula. Just as the soldier is about to be cut down, Dale fires his bolt at the attacking orc, tearing its head off. This shocks Alan and Helmet because Dale's accuracy is top-notch, giving the distance from where he fired the bolt. Once the orc is down, Dale makes the daring move of riding toward the wounded soldier. Helmet wants to stop him, but Alan urges him to let Dale be. Alan is impressed that his son was able to craft such a destructive level of magic at his age. Alan figures out that Dale's inner world is on the verge of completion. As Dale approaches the wounded soldier, he realizes that he is stuck with two problems because the orcs are already regrouping. Because his original formula is too long and inefficient for combat use, Dale decides to use the simplification formula, which should shorten it. The soldier has another orc charging at him when Dale fires an ice bullet so devastating it leaves the orc headless. This shocks the soldier, and he asks Dale why he would risk his life for someone like him. Dale gets off his horse, and he walks up to the soldier to tell him that the house will never abandon a loyal soldier. Before they know it, more orcs start to approach their location, and Dale unleashes the Shadow Blade to consume the stubborn orcs. The orcs find themselves going up against a more terrifying power, leaving those who are still alive shocked. They watch what is left of their comrade, which is nothing but its bones. Dale notices that the other orc is too stunned to move, and Dale finishes him off with an ice bullet. After he is done taking care of the orcs, he turns to the soldier, who tells him that his body is refusing to move. Dale then carries him, and he returns to base, telling Helmut that he will leave the rest of the battle to him. Dale's actions motivate Helmut, and he orders his men to charge at the orcs at full speed. The soldiers are also motivated by Dale's daring rescue, and they all charge toward the orcs at full speed. Soon afterward, Alan calls Dale to his tent to tell him that they have successfully completed the subjugation of the orcs. Alan then tells Dale that he specially called him because he has something to ask him. Alan wants to know why Dale rushed into the enemy lines by himself. With a stern voice, Alan asks Dale why he would do something as reckless as that. Dale is shocked by his father's seriousness, leaving him questioning why he is getting scolded. Dale replies that his father told him he would one day lead the Knights of the House, and he was merely fulfilling the duty tagged to the title. Alan lets off a subtle smile before telling Dale that his reasoning is weak. Dale is shocked to hear this, since his father was famous for cherishing his knights, and he wonders why he is acting that way. Dale then asks his father why he stood by and watched while his knight was about to be killed. His father reveals that the Northern Demon King's territory under House Saxon faces constant hordes of monsters, and the knights who are on the front lines are not fighting with the intention of being saved if things go wrong. Dale then expresses his concern, saying he thought his father would actually save a loyal knight. Alan berates Dale for his actions, telling him that he has just planted a seed of comfort in the mind of the soldiers because they now believe there will always be someone out there to save them. Alan asks Dale how many knights he thinks will survive with this mentality instilled in them. Alan mentions that it is the knight's duties to take on threats, and it is when he believes that they have reached their limits that he will personally stop them. Alan mentions that this is the noble duty that his house must bear. After hearing this from his father, Dale realizes that he is actually right, and he can't deny the fact that his father speaks the truth. This is something he is aware of from his past life, but he somehow forgot it. Just then, Alan pats Dale on the shoulder, telling him that his act of bravery was impressive, and he urges him never to lose the spirit. Dale acknowledges his father's words, and Alan tells him that it is time they return to the castle. In no time, Dale's daring rescue soon became the most popular story in the Empire. The storytellers also make sure that they exaggerate things by saying Dale cut down 1,000 orcs. Even Dale, who is the main subject of the story, finds it somewhat embarrassing, but the event brought a canopy of new hope to the duchy. Some days later, Dale heads to the training grounds, and he is welcomed by the knights with the utmost respect and honor. Even Dale is blushing so hard that he tries telling the knights that they don't need to honor him that much. However, Helmut tells him to stand proud, and Helmut urges the knights to salute Dale. Dale is impressed by the passion flowing around among the knights. Just then, the maid, Eve, informs him that the guests from the House Orhart have arrived. Dale thanks Eve for her services, and Helmut suggests that they get a move on. The House Orhart was once headed by Badal, who was known as the Divine Sword. It was a great noble house of the fallen Teutonia kingdom. But when the Empire launched its unification war, the kingdom and the great house perished with it. Dale can sense that Helmut's expression has changed, and this is probably because he remembers the Divine Sword, the man who guided him into knighthood. Helmut and Dale enter the throne room main room, where Elena and Alan are waiting for them. Just then, the guest, Vanessa Orhart, enters the room, and Dale is impressed that she made it by herself without any attendants. Vanessa then introduces the young lady beside her as her daughter, Charlotte. Suddenly, Charlotte steps up, asking her mother in anger why she bowed her head in greeting. Vanessa screams at her daughter, asking her why she is acting all rudely. But Alan calms the situation, saying they must have been stressed from the journey. He then tells Dale to escort Charlotte around the castle. Dale excitedly accepts the offer and stretches his hand toward Charlotte, asking her to come with him. However, Charlotte screams at Dale, telling him not to touch her. She slaps his hand away, shocking Dale and everyone else in the room, including Baby Lies. Charlotte speaks up, saying Dale and his family are shameless imperial nobles. Her mother cannot believe her eyes, and she screams at Charlotte, telling her to immediately apologize. Instead of apologizing, Charlotte runs out of the room while Dale tries to tell her to wait. After she is gone, Vanessa apologizes to Alan and Elena, telling them to pardon her daughter's rude behavior. Vanessa mentions that Charlotte is not usually like that, But after recent activities, her emotions have become unstable. This gets Elena curious, and she asks Vanessa what the problem is. Vanessa explains that Count Brand was assigned to their territory as the overseer. Vanessa is pretty sure that Elena and her husband knows who she speaks of because he is infamous and called the Pig King for a reason. There is a rumor that in order to produce a talented heir, he is looking to plant his seed in any skilled swordsman, even if that person is Charlotte, who hasn't even come of age. Vanessa says Charlotte only managed to escape before Brand could touch her, but it is pretty evident that such a memory of horror cannot be erased easily. Vanessa mentions that her aim is to protect her daughter, but since she is a fallen noble, her power is limited. Because of this, she's come to ask Alan to take Charlotte as a maid in the house so that Brand will not be able to reach her. Meanwhile, Dale has managed to catch up to the runaway Charlotte, and he asks her if she knows where she is going. Charlotte replies that she doesn't care, and Dale wonders why Charlotte ended up in the training grounds of all places. It quickly dawns on him that Charlotte is a knight's daughter, so it runs in the blood. Charlotte then asks Dale if his hand is fine, and he assures her that he is fine. Charlotte is glad to hear this and whips out her sword, telling Dale to have a spar match with her. Dale is shocked to hear this, and Charlotte screams at him, telling him to draw his sword. Dale cannot believe his eyes because Charlotte is basically a wild buffalo who is doing whatever she wants. Dale then tells the lady that he will need a reason first. Charlotte claims that she has heard a lot about Dale, being the man who terminated 1,000 orcs to save a fallen knight. Because of this, Charlotte is aiming to defeat Dale, who is considered to be the unmatched person in the Empire. With this, she plans to prove that she is strong and that she has what it takes to protect her family from Brand. The moment Dale hears Brand's name, his reaction goes from bland to excessive rage. He remembers that Brand was the dude who betrayed him and literally stabbed him in the back. Dale cannot believe that he would hear the dude's name from Charlotte. Since they share the same target, he believes that she is going to be a good ally. However, he can make her an ally. He figures out that she needs to be put in check. Dale walks over to grab a sword, and he tells Charlotte that he is just a child who knows nothing. Dale tells Charlotte to come at him with everything she has, and Charlotte assures him that this is her plan. Charlotte then dashes toward Dale with her full strength, but Dale easily blocks her attack like it's nothing. She continues swinging at him, but he just blocks everything. In the process of her swinging at him, he can clearly see that she is faintly using aura. The same way a mage generates mana using the magic circle in the heart, a knight accumulates aura within their body to exceed human limits. With what he has seen, Dale admits that Charlotte is a proper knight. Charlotte charges toward him again, but he blocks. To Charlotte, she is confident that she has the upper hand because she has Dale pushing back. She narrates how she didn't get to know her father, but her mother was always telling her stories about him. Her mother had told her that she had to protect the family in her father's place. After their kingdom fell and the house came crashing down, Charlotte never stopped swinging. This is why she is frustrated at the fact that Dale is able to block her attacks. Charlotte angrily launches a direct attack at Dale, but he easily dodges it, and he uses the opportunity to land a counterattack. He slaps off her sword, shocking her. She falls to her knees, while wondering why someone with high potential like her can't win the fight. Dale then tells her that she can't win because she is not her father. He lets her know that her pride as his father's daughter isn't wrong, but with her current condition, she can't protect her house from Brand. Tears roll down her face as Dale lets her know that Brand is currently stronger than even him. With remorse, Charlotte asks Brand what it is that she is supposed to do. Just then, Dale swears on his honor that he is going to protect her and her house until the day Charlotte is strong enough to defeat Brand. Charlotte is shocked to hear this, and she fails to stop the tears from rolling. Dale assures her that House Saxon will be her shield, and Charlotte asks him why he is helping. Dale replies that he is willing to help because she is worth it. He then asks her to swear to become a sword for him and House Saxon. Charlotte smiles, saying there is no way she can refuse the offer. Charlotte then goes on her knees, raises her sword, and pledges her loyalty as a knight to Dale. Dale can see that Charlotte is not messing around with her vow, even though it sounds like a childish promise. After this, Dale heads to his father's office because Charlotte has officially become a maid of the house. Alan asks Dale how he was able to convince Charlotte to accept, and he tells him that they made a promise. Dale reveals that he has promised Charlotte that he is going to protect her and her house. Alan asks him if he invoked the family's name out of pity, but Dale assures him that this is not the case. Alan then asks Dale what he plans to gain from this, and Dale mentions that he wants Charlotte because she is Badel's daughter, which makes her an exceptional talent. Dale reveals that they swore an oath together, and he reveals that what he wants is a new divine sword that will be wielded for the sake of their duchy. Alan is pleased with his answer, and he commends his wisdom. Dale is glad that the last bloodline of the divine sword is now under their roof, which counts as a decisive blow against Brand. At the capital of Teutonia, Malberg, Brand learns about what happened, and he angrily smashes his drink. He blames his knights for failing to capture a little girl. His retainer tells him that they actually sent assassins, but they were killed before even reaching House Saxon. The retainer says that they suspect that Charlotte was the one who fought off the assassins herself. Brand cannot believe just how useless his people are. Brand is such a creepy dude that he is hell-bent on getting a perfect heir to inherit his sword. Brand then tells his retainer to contact the Thieves' Guild to send men to the Saxon territory. Brand tells his retainers to pay the men whatever they ask for, as long as they bring him Charlotte. A week after swearing the oath to serve the Duke's house, Charlotte has undergone intense maid training, and she has also made sparring one of her daily activities. At the training ground, Helmut is always there to supervise her sparring match with Dale. The two swing at each other with so much precision that Helmut is left wondering if the two are really children. Helmut admits that they are not on par with knights yet, but their killing intent and speed are nothing short of remarkable. When Charlotte is about to take things too far, Helmut steps in, stopping the fight and telling Charlotte that she has done well. Charlotte, on the other hand, doesn't think she deserves to be praised, and she demands to know what it is that she is lacking. Helmut then asks her if she knows the essence of the rapier, and Charlotte replies that it is primarily meant for thrusting. However, Helmut tells her that she is wrong because the true essence lies in her footwork. Helmut explains that after Dale evaded her thrust, he simultaneously closed the distance. Helmut believes that, in return, she should have widened the gap and waited for an opening. Helmut says the more she bends and extends her arm with a rapier, the more her blade shakes, which causes her thrust to lose precision. Helmut lets Charlotte know that she has to work on her basics from the ground up. Charlotte is shocked to hear this, and Helmut tells her that he has noticed how unrefined her posture and footwork are. Charlotte then mentions that she has not had a proper teacher in the past. Helmut assures her that since he is there, he is going to help her fix her trash thrusting stance. Charlotte cannot believe that Helmut just called her thrusting trash. But before she crashes out, Dale holds her back, urging her to hold it in. Helmut then tells her that he is only joking because she looks cute. With what Dale has seen, he figures out that Charlotte might catch up to him soon if he doesn't push himself further. Later on, Dale informs Sophia that he has completed the forming of his second magic circle, shocking the lady because this is something that normally takes a decade sometimes. Apparently, the mage's mana circle in this world is measured in the rotations per minute of mana flow. A first-class mage usually has around 300 RPM. Dale's first magic circle clocked in around 2000 RPM, while his second circle is at around 400 RPM. To expand a new circle, the minimum is 300 RPM, meaning Dale has even met the requirement to open a third magic circle. Since he has obtained his second circle, Dale starts thinking of running an experiment. Dale wants to try to enhance the existing ice bullet by strengthening the molecular bonds to increase its mass and hardness. After this, he plans to project a large-caliber barrel to boost rotation and velocity. With this, he creates an armor-piercing ice bullet. Dale unleashes his new projectile, and it pierces through a tree, leaving a big hole in the middle. Even Dale is impressed by what he just did, and he realizes that an additional circle is significant. Sophia is also impressed, and she commends Dale, telling him that he is a fast learner. Dale returns the compliment to her, saying he is able to pull off everything thanks to Sophia's mentorship. Deep down, Sophia is impressed with the kind of person Dale is growing up to be because he is always using his power for the right things. However, she admits that his strength scares her sometimes. Sophia draws Dale closer to hug him, telling him that he is truly a student she can be proud of. Dale cannot contain his joy when he hears this, and his face turns red from excitement. At the same time, he thinks the entire situation is awkward, but Sophia doesn't mind because she is comfortable with physical contact. Because of how close Sophia is to him, he starts getting ideas, but he quickly shuts them down so he can focus on training. Dale then continues his training, and he creates a large ice wall before shooting an ice bullet through it. Dale is impressed with what came out of the new formula, and he plans to make it a slug round next time. Just then, Charlotte shows up, expressing her concern because she has been looking all around for him. She is surprised that Dale is practicing, and Dale asks her what she has been up to. Charlotte replies that she has been practicing the footwork that Helmut taught her. As the conversation progresses, Charlotte finally apologizes for acting out the last time. Charlotte mentions that she has been reflecting on how rude she was to him. Dale shocks her, telling her that she hasn't been rude, but he tells her that he is going to forgive her. Charlotte is shocked to hear this, and Dale urges Charlotte to remove the formalities when addressing him. Charlotte agrees to do this, and the two start talking about the weather. Charlotte talks about how the cool weather is helping her stay longer in training. Dale is happy to hear this because he has finally found someone who feels the same way as he does. While the two are discussing with each other, Alan and Elena are watching from inside the cabin. Alan tells his wife that the kids look perfect together, and Elena agrees, saying they have to keep an eye on them. Elena tells Alan that she has finally figured out what needs to be done. She says it's her duty as a mother to lead her son so he can be true to his feelings. Shortly afterward, Elena heads to the slums where the beggars and the homeless live on the street. Dale escorts his mother to provide help for those who need it. Every week, she always provides food and necessities to help. Since the start of the year, Charlotte and Dale have been working with her. Suddenly, a little girl comes running over to Charlotte with tears in her eyes, telling her that her mother is in danger. Charlotte and Dale soon find themselves walking through alleyways, following the girl. Dale figures out that the whole thing appears to be suspicious because the request was made to Charlotte, not an adult. As they run through the streets, Dale spots a man hiding on a rooftop, and he figures out that he is from the Thieves Guild. Without a doubt, he figures out that Brand was the one who sent the dude. He can clearly see that Charlotte is their target, but he wonders why they are making it too obvious. Once they reach a dead end, the little girl vanishes, claiming that she is leaving to bring her mom. Just then, mercenaries step out from their hiding places, leaving Charlotte startled. The mercenaries tell Dale to back off because they are only interested in Charlotte. The mercenaries tell Dale that he might get hurt if he tries to interfere. Dale smiles when he realizes the situation they have found themselves in. Without stuttering, he tells the mercenaries that he has sworn to protect Charlotte from terrible people like them. The leader of the mercenaries laughed, saying his act of bravery was truly commendable. However, he tells Dale that it would have been better for him to act bravely in another circumstance. The merc leader tells Dale that they are going to teach him real-life pain. Charlotte is worried because she left her sword, but Dale assures her that she has nothing to worry about. Dale is excited because he sees this as an opportunity to test out the Shadow Cloak's new technique, while claiming that it is all self-defense. The mercenaries charge at him, and just as they are about to reach him, he activates the Shadow Cloak. The mercenaries fail to see this and assume that it is nothing but the wind. However, the mercenary leader can sense this, and he screams at them, telling them to dodge. Dale is impressed that the mercenary leader figured this out, unlike his dumb friends. This tells Dale that the dude is higher ranked than the rest. Before the mercenaries know what is happening, the Shadow Cloak has gotten the advantage. It cuts down those in its range, and it turns out that the new Shadow Cloak technique is one that Dale discovered after reaching the second circle. He plants shadow creation like parasites, causing them to move on their own to kill their targets. The mercenary leader watches as his men are being decimated by Dale's shadows, and he is not even moving an inch. One of the mercenaries who got caught in the shadow magic suddenly turns into an undead soldier. The mercenary leader can sense the danger, and he screams at his men, telling them to terminate the undead soldier before things go south for them. The mercenary leader figures out that all they need to do is take down Dale, and a single swing of the blade will suffice. The dude then makes his move by activating his aura-infused assassination technique to make it seem like he has split himself up. He throws his daggers at Dale, but they all get blocked. The dude gets close enough for Dale to activate his ice bullet to riddle his body with it. At the same time, the undead soldier is taking care of the other mercenaries. On the other hand, the mercenary leader refuses to die from the single shot that Dale fires into his body. Dale can see that aura wielders are quite tough. The dude then calculates his options before making his next move. He dashes toward Dale with the intention of reaching him with a blinding speed before he can unleash his magic circle. However, the undead soldier intercepts him on the way and tears him to shreds. Dale walks up to Charlotte to make sure that she is doing just fine. The last mercenary tries to run away, but Dale cuts off his leg with a single ice bullet shot to trap him. The dude starts crying, telling Dale that he is willing to tell him everything he asks. Dale lets him know that he is interested in basically everything, and the dude assures Dale that he is going to cooperate. Suddenly, Dale turns the table around and shatters the dude's head with an ice bullet, telling him that he is not interested in whatever information he has. He tells her that this is the true face of the Duchy of Saxon that people fear, but it is also the power that will protect her. He asks if she is frightened after seeing it. She admits she's a little scared, but quickly adds that it's okay because he did it to protect her. She repeats the vow she made that day. If his family becomes the shield that protects her own, she will repay him in the future by becoming the sword to be wielded for his sake. She thanks him earnestly for showing her a future and declares that she will become stronger. He watches her, thinking to himself that his acceptance of Charlotte was partly rooted in guilt. He carries the weight of a past life. Thus, her willingness to become his sword carries a far greater meaning than he could have anticipated. Meanwhile, in Count Brandenburg's castle, the Count curses under his breath as he reads a letter, an invitation to Saxon Castle. It is, in essence, a summons from the Black Duke, the Duke of Saxon, calling him to account for the attempted kidnapping incident. Brandenburg realizes that even as the Empire's holy sword, he has no choice but to comply. A few days later, Count Brandenburg arrives at Saxon Castle. The Duke, seated on his throne with Dale at his side, welcomes him, commenting on the difficulty of the journey. He adds that he didn't expect him to arrive so quickly and apologizes for the somewhat lacking welcome. Brandenburg replies sarcastically that there is nothing more urgent than a summons from the Duke. Inwardly he fumes, calling Dale and Charlotte cunning little brats. The Duke continues, stating that there is great concern within the Empire over the recent daylight kidnapping attempt within his domain. He adds that he can easily guess why Brandenburg was summoned. Brandenburg, cloaked in contempt, wonders how someone like him, the Emperor's loyal sword, could be implicated in such an indecent matter. As he speaks, a dense, dark aura begins to emanate from the Duke and spread throughout the hall. Brandenburg is startled. One of his followers asks, "Why is there wind?" as shadows begin to envelop them. The Count's knights are stricken with terror as the shadows gradually consume them. They scream for help from their master. Brandenburg realizes that his St. Magdalena order has been defeated effortlessly, and he recognizes the high-level dark magic at play. It is Duke Saxon casting a powerful spell known as Tempest of Nihil. The Duke addresses Count Brandenburg, the so-called Sword of Sanctity, and orders him to kneel and remain still. Brandenburg protests furiously, asking what the Duke is doing. The Duke replies coolly, questioning whether he failed to hear him. He warns that there won't be a next time. Cursing inwardly, Brandenburg is forced to kneel, overwhelmed by the Duke's oppressive magical aura. He acknowledges that the Duke may have his reasons, but he never expected to be subjected to such humiliation. From the throne, the Duke reminds him that he summoned him in the interest of peace. Then, with piercing intent, he threatens to slaughter every member of the Brandenburg family should the Count ever again attempt to harm the children of House Saxon. He expresses a sincere hope that the warning will be heeded. Suddenly, his tone shifts. With mock courtesy, he invites the Count to warm himself, a sarcastic gesture. Brandenburg, masking his anger, replies that he appreciates the Duke's generosity but must decline due to circumstances. The Duke dismisses him, wishing him a safe return. Dale, who has been observing the situation, reflects on what just transpired. Brandenburg is one of the Emperor's closest allies, and what his father just did to such a man will undoubtedly ignite tensions that will shake the Empire. Dale recognizes this moment as the spark, one that won't take long to grow into a flame, and when it does, it will be their role to sever the head of the Sword of Sanctity. By the time news of the Sword of Sanctity kneeling before the Black Duke spreads, the Duke is already in his office. Standing beside him is teacher Sophia, who is visibly horrified. The Duke explains that the corpses before her belong to the Thieves' Guild members who had attacked Dale. He confirms that Dale was responsible for the massacre. She takes in the gruesome sight, one corpse having vomited its entrails, another crushed and riddled with holes. For the first time, she begins to question whether her teachings to Dale were misguided. The Duke explains that, as she can see, guiding Dale's talent properly now requires her wisdom. He offers her the position of chief advisor. Shocked, Sophia realizes that this means becoming a member of House Saxon, not merely a teacher. He tells her that Dale relies on her greatly and that guiding him is no longer something he can manage alone. He assures her that things will be different if she agrees to support them. Sophia accepts, saying she understands. She acknowledges that understanding how Dale sees the world has now become more critical than ever. Time passes and Dale's 10th birthday arrives, celebrated with a lavish banquet. This year's celebration is different. Figures from the Emperor's faction are also present. Among them is a particularly prominent guest, Marquis Eurus, who is warmly welcomed. He steps forward to greet the young Lord Dale, expressing his pleasure at meeting him. The guests at the banquet continued to express admiration for the fine cuisine, praising the generosity of Duke Saxon. Many commented that such opulence was astonishing for a territory located in the northernmost reaches of the Empire, and they conceded that their earlier doubts about the duchy's remoteness had been unfounded. Dale observed the scene in silence. He recognized these individuals as central nobles from the imperial capital, the heart of the Emperor's faction and the greatest political force under his authority. Their attendance carried an unmistakable message, a subtle but potent warning from the imperial family. The implication was clear. They would not overlook the humiliation suffered by Count Brandenburg, the so-called Sword of Sanctity. Among them stood the one person who fully grasped the weight of that message, Marquis Eurus. The Marquis examined Dale closely, acknowledging him as the young heir of House Saxon. Introducing himself as the Crimson Lord, he made his presence and status known. Dale recognized the name immediately. Eurus was the head of the Red Magic Tower, an institution that pursued the principles of fire, fury, and strength through absolute power. Known for its adherence to the philosophy of might over right, the Red Tower had never hesitated to serve as the Empire's tool for enforcing control. Memories from Dale's previous life surfaced, painful recollections of being subjected to cruel magical experiments by the Red Tower's mages. The Marquis acknowledged the rumors surrounding Dale, noting that the young heir of Saxon had already displayed unmatched magical talent, even managing to annihilate a horde of orcs at just 9 years old to protect a loyal knight. He remarked that such a feat confirmed Dale's identity as the Duke's son. Dale responded with polite formality, offering a faint smile before retreating from the conversation. Internally, he admitted to feeling drained by the ceremonial praise he received each year. His thoughts turned to Charlotte, wishing instead to spend the day training with her. Unfortunately, her position as a lady-in-waiting under his mother's guidance precluded such freedom. Furthermore, he understood the risks involved should anyone from the capital discover that the daughter of the sword god was secretly training in swordsmanship. Suddenly, a sharp scream pierced the air, followed by the coarse voice of a man shouting at a maid to stay still. Dale immediately traced the source of the noise, where he discovered a man forcing himself on a maid who lay on the floor, begging him to stop. The maid, Eve, pleaded for mercy, reminding the man of her service under House Saxon. The fatty guest berated her for daring to invoke the house's name. He seemed to take offense that during such a festive occasion, the young lord's birthday, someone would disrupt the mood with such trivialities. He mocked her further, insisting that celebrations were meant for indulgence, and claimed it would be more enjoyable to play with a girl. As he issued threats, he gripped the terrified maid and raised a knife, warning her of the consequences should she continue to resist. Dale stepped in, interrupting the scene with a calm but cutting inquiry. The man, taken aback by the young lord's sudden appearance, became flustered. Attempting to deflect, he rudely questioned Dale's experience with women and even offered to teach him, all while holding the trembling maid hostage. Dale ignored the provocation. Instead, he reassured Eve, quietly promising that he would not let any harm come to her. He reflected on the rigid class system that governed this world, knowing full well that the man, named Petro, would never expect a noble, let alone a young heir, to challenge an imperial guest. Using this hesitation to his advantage, Dale quickly cast an ice spell that struck Petro and knocked him to the ground. Dale understood the weight of his actions. Striking a representative of the Emperor was dangerous, yet he had no intention of retreating. Petro rose in fury, demanding an explanation. Dale gave him none, only issuing a cold order to kneel. When Petro failed to comply, Dale repeated the command, this time instructing him to apologize to Eve and recognize her as a member of House Saxon. Petro, still defiant, reminded Dale of his status as an emissary of the Emperor and accused him of treating a noble guest with contempt for the sake of a common maid. He claimed that such behavior amounted to insulting the Empire itself. Dale interrupted with biting sarcasm, questioning whether the Emperor had a known penchant for abusing others' maids. The accusation stunned Petro, who gasped at the suggestion. At that moment, the Duke, the Marquis, and several other guests arrived. The Marquis, observing the scene with thinly veiled amusement, remarked that it was quite the spectacle. The Duke asked Dale to explain the commotion. Dale stated that Petro had attempted to violate a maid serving House Saxon. One of the other nobles responded with disbelief, suggesting that Dale's reaction was excessive for such a minor issue. Sensing an opportunity, Petro attempted to paint Dale as immature and unreasonable. Dale addressed him again with authority, demanding to know who had granted him permission to stand. Turning to the assembled guests, Dale reminded them that those representing the Emperor were expected to uphold the dignity of the imperial family. By attempting to assault a servant of House Saxon, Petro had not only disgraced himself, but also insulted the very Emperor he claimed to represent. This, Dale explained, was the true reason he could not tolerate Petro's actions. The Marquis laughed in admiration, calling Dale's statement a masterpiece of rhetoric. He agreed wholeheartedly with Dale's stance and ridiculed the idea that someone entrusted with the Emperor's image would stoop to assaulting a lowly maid. Calling forward his attendant, Tulara, the Marquis issued a chilling order to eliminate Petro. Petro, now desperate, begged for his life as Tulara unleashed a devastating fire spell. Petro screamed in agony as the flames consumed him. The Marquis declared that Dale's judgment had been flawless. He explained that it was his solemn duty to burn away any insect that dared to tarnish the honor of the Empire or its ruler. In closing, he expressed his high expectations for Dale's future, impressed by the young heir's composure and resolve. After the commotion subsided, the Emperor's men departed, and peace returned once again to Duke Saxon's castle. Sometime later, on a quiet morning, the maid Eve gently woke Dale. He expressed his gratitude and immediately noticed her hesitation, prompting him to ask if something was on her mind. With visible nervousness, she expressed her thanks, telling him how proud she was to serve him. Dale wondered why such a simple expression required such hesitation. Despite having lived in this world for quite some time now, he still had difficulty adjusting to this level of reverence. Nevertheless, he reminded himself that he needed to get used to it. He thanked her again. He reflected on the weight that came with being the eldest son of House Saxon. Understanding the power tied to the name, he resolved to use everything at his disposal to bring down the Empire. Later that day, Duke Saxon summoned his son to his office. He acknowledged Dale's brilliance, but questioned the reasoning behind his recent, increasingly bold actions. In response, Dale posed a surprising counterpoint. He asked if the Duke knew that had the hero from another world not perished in the battle against Lord Bardell, The next sword drawn by the hero might have been turned against House Saxon itself. The Duke was stunned by the assertion, remarking on how daring it sounded and inquiring what led Dale to believe such a thing. Inwardly, Dale recalled what he had heard in his past life, that the Empire had once plotted against House Saxon. But instead of revealing this truth, he crafted a different explanation. He reasoned that the Empire had chosen to dispose of the hero's power out of fear, recognizing that their hunting dog might eventually break its leash. He elaborated, explaining how the hero, despite having defeated the Demon King, had not seen the darkness in the Demon King's lands completely eradicated. Instead, the Empire issued an absurd decree, demanding that House Saxon reclaim and convert those lands into imperial territory. This drained the ducal family's resources, while granting them the cursed territory as a fief. Dale concluded that so long as the darkness in that region remained, so too would the endless drain on House Saxon. Moreover, across the Empire and beyond, people viewed the ducal house with suspicion, branding them as a clan of darkness. With this in mind, he argued that just as the Empire had cast aside the hero when he was no longer convenient, they would one day seek to eliminate the internal threat posed by House Saxon. The Duke, still reeling, asked how Dale could possibly know that the hero had been disposed of. Dale responded with calm reasoning, stating that it was simply his own conclusion based on research and readings from the archives. The official narrative, he noted, claimed that the hero died honorably in a fierce battle with Lord Bardell, the sword god. But to Dale, the pieces didn't align. Inwardly, the Duke is astonished that he has unearthed a truth known only to a select few, and all through books alone. Dale continued his assessment. If his conclusions were correct, then the concept of justice in the Empire was no more than a veil for tyranny, a tool of violence used to rob and suppress the weak. The Duke regarded his son in silence, struck by the depth of wisdom his child possessed. He asked what path House Saxon should take. Without hesitation, Dale declared that coexistence with the Empire was impossible. House Saxon would have to destroy it. The Duke, visibly shaken, asked if his son truly understood the gravity of such a statement. Dale clarified that he was not suggesting an immediate rebellion. What he proposed was a long-term vision, one that would unfold over the next 10 years. The Duke questioned the time frame, and Dale pressed on with his explanation. Across the continent, he noted, there were still resistance movements longing for independence. Among the nobility, including lords like the Duke himself, many harbored deep-seated fears that the Empire would eventually turn its blade against them. Economically, the Empire was faltering. Banditry was on the rise, and the wounds of war were festering, despite the supposed unification of the continent. Dale suggested that now was the time to begin laying the foundation for what would come in a decade's time. They would need to build strength, covertly supporting resistance forces in other regions, all while preparing to protect their home from the inevitable clash. As the sun began to set, Dale concluded the presentation of his strategy and asked for his father's thoughts. The Duke responded with laughter, acknowledging the immeasurable depth of his son's talent. He admitted that Dale was capable of seeing far beyond what he himself could perceive. With a newfound sense of admiration, the Duke declared his pride in Dale, not just as his son, but as the future head of House Saxon. From that moment forward, the Duke promised to treat Dale not simply as a child or a successor, but as an equal in leadership. This declaration moved Dale deeply. It marked the turning point he had been waiting for, the moment he would finally wield the power of House Saxon with his own hands. The Duke then invited Dale to speak freely, asking what decision he wished to make in that very moment for the future of their family. Dale smiled and reminded his father of the promise to treat him as an equal. Based on that, he requested permission to participate in the Tower Trial held in Necropolis. The Duke was stunned by the request. The Tower Trial was a form of hierarchical challenge, where mages faced off against the guardians of the magic towers. Those who defeated high-ranking guardians earned the right to become Tower Elders. The one who stood at the top was granted the title of Tower Master. The Duke reminded Dale of the immense danger involved. The trial was known to be life-threatening, and Dale had yet to reach even the third circle. Attempting it now would be reckless. He noted that most mages didn't reach the third circle until their mid-20s. Even for someone like Dale, who had already mastered the second circle, the leap was far from trivial. Dale responded with calm confidence, assuring his father that he would reach the third circle soon. This, he explained, was not just his decision. It was one made for himself, for his father, and for House Saxon as a whole. The Duke asked what he meant by that. Dale explained that by succeeding in the trial, he would solidify the Duke's position further, proving to all that his heir was not merely the subject of empty gossip, but someone truly capable and worthy. His success would offer legitimacy and a trustworthy reputation to both their names. When asked if this was the real reason behind his desire to take the trial, Dale confirmed it. The Duke smiled in response, stating that he understood and would entrust the final judgment to his son. Dale thanks his father and promised to prove his worth. A few days later, Duke Saxon and Dale arrived in the city of the dead, Necropolis. As the massive doors to the city opened, the Black Duke was received with the utmost respect by those present. Dale, weary from his preparations, stifled a yawn. He couldn't help but think perhaps this time he had overexerted himself. As Duke Saxon and Dale walked, the onlookers began whispering among themselves. Some speculated whether the rumors were true, that Dale was a magical genius unlike any the Empire had ever seen. One observer remarked that Dale looked utterly miserable, while another insisted the stories must be true and urged others not to dismiss them. The crowd's chatter grew increasingly skeptical. Someone sarcastically pointed out that Dale's swordsmanship supposedly rivaled the Duke's knight's, dismissing the claim as pathetic. Among the crowd stood Velik, the top graduate of the Academy, who confidently declared that he was the one truly deserving to win the trial, not the Duke's so-called prodigy, whom he considered weak and unworthy. Soon, the Duke and Dale reached the towering structure at the heart of Necropolis. They were greeted by a woman named Eris, who respectfully acknowledged the Duke as the Tower Master. After returning the greeting, the Duke introduced Eris to Dale, noting her loyalty to the house. Eris, an elder of the Tower and its Secretary-General, managed the Tower's affairs in the Duke's absence. The Duke informed his son that Eris would assist him throughout the trial. Dale acknowledged this arrangement and Eris welcomed him under her care. She then led him through the tower and into a vast hall, explaining that he would be taking the test alongside 59 other graduates from the Academy. Dale surveyed the room, filled with competitors. After gathering the competitors, Eris introduced herself to the gathered examinees and began outlining the rules for the first-floor trial of the Black Magic Tower. Each participant was instructed to check the pendant hanging around their neck, a pendant containing 1 life point and a protective shield spell. The test, she explained, would be a battle royale in which competitors attempted to steal life points by landing a successful attack using the undead corpses scattered throughout the arena. A valid strike would activate the victim's shield, destroy their pendant, and eliminate them from the trial. The successful attacker would receive an additional point. Anyone who accumulated 3 points would qualify for the next floor. The use of magical artifacts was strictly prohibited and would result in immediate disqualification. Dale considered the rules carefully, recognizing them as a method to eliminate inexperienced mages early. Around him, the other participants began whispering. Many regarded Dale with awe and suspicion, calling him a monster. They were stunned by the idea that someone so young had already reached the 3rd circle. Velik, growing increasingly agitated, proposed to the others that they join forces to eliminate Dale first. One contestant expressed concern over targeting the young lord, but Velik dismissed the worry, insisting that once the trial began, they were all equals. Dale overheard the conversation and silently commended their confidence. Internally, he challenged them to prove whether they were more than just talk. Eris signaled the start of the trial. Chaos erupted as contestants began raising the corpses around them, summoning undead soldiers for battle. Velik noticed Dale remaining still and took it as an opportunity to strike first. He sent his undead soldier toward Dale with its sword raised high. To his astonishment, the blow was blocked, not by Dale himself but by an undead soldier under Dale's command. Velik was surprised, realizing that Dale was using water magic to freeze and strengthen his summoned soldier. The revelation sparked murmurs among the participants. Some questioned whether Dale had dual affinity, the rare ability to use 2 schools of magic. As one of the undead soldiers clashed with Dale's, the attacker cried out in frustration as his creation shattered on impact. Another undead soldier launched an attack against Dale's, but the strike was deflected. Dale had fortified his undead with an ice shield, rendering the assault ineffective. Velik, furious, accused Dale of breaking the rules by using water magic. He insisted that only dark magic was permitted in the trial, specifically for raising and enhancing undead. Dale, unmoved, turned to Eris, questioning whether the rules truly forbade enhancing undead with other elements. Eris remained silent, and with no action taken to stop him, Dale concluded that his interpretation was valid. Velik, left fuming, cursed the situation under his breath. Desperate to turn the tide, Velik commanded his allies to block Dale's enhanced undead soldier while targeting Dale directly. He argued that despite his power, Dale was only one person and could be overwhelmed by numbers. Dale reminded himself that the use of artifacts was banned, and thus chose to fight with his own strength. He charged into battle, expertly dodging the attacks of the undead soldiers. Seizing an opportunity, he grabbed a sword from one of the undead, then delivered a punch infused with black magic before slicing through another enemy with ease. One contestant stood frozen in disbelief, unable to comprehend how his undead had been dismantled so easily. Velik, observing from a distance, suspected that Dale's sword was no ordinary weapon. Eris confirmed his suspicion, noting that Dale had restructured the sword's bone composition to increase its durability. As the battle raged on, another undead soldier launched an attack at Dale. Without hesitation, he leapt into the air and brought his sword crashing down, destroying the opponent. Velik, now completely exposed and having lost all his undead, watched in horror as Dale advanced. Terrified, Velik began begging for mercy. Dale, unbothered, remarked that thanks to the protective pendant, no one would actually die here. With a calm expression, he swung his sword and shattered Velik's pendant. As Velik collapsed, he muttered a final word in disbelief, calling Dale a monster. Eris rose to her feet and announced the results of the first trial. She declared that Lord Dale was the sole survivor and victor, having acquired all 60 life points, one from each of the other participants. Dale reflected silently. This place, he thought, would become his first step forward. And from now on, everyone would watch him closely. The scene shifted to the second floor of the tower trial, a level that required the challenger to defeat the Guardian, a flesh golem. Dale reflected on the fact that typically survivors from the first floor would form temporary alliances to take down such a powerful opponent. However, since he had eliminated every other contestant, he now stood alone. Unlike the first floor, all types of magic were permitted on this level. Though the prohibition against artifact use remained in effect, Dale considered the lifted restriction more than sufficient. To him, this was not merely a battle. It was an opportunity, a chance to reach the third circle and test the limits of his true potential. The golem launched an initial strike, but Dale swiftly dodged and countered with an attack that injured the creature's arm. The golem reacted with unexpected surprise. Dale, unfazed, began to cast a new spell, Accelerated Decay. From her observation point, Eris noted that the spell being cast was far from ordinary. As the spell took effect, the golem's body began to corrode. She questioned Dale's approach. Why choose corruption over a straightforward method like dismemberment? Dale pondered the same spell. In his past life, biochemical warfare had served as an essential strategy alongside firearms when dealing with monstrous threats. As he wiped blood from his face, he mused whether the observers, including Eris, had realized that the horrors of biochemical warfare were now being reimagined through black magic. That day, Dale completed the second floor trial. He set a new record by reaching the 10th floor and was subsequently granted 4 days of rest before the next stage began. Meanwhile, due to the unprecedented massacre Dale had caused on the first floor, the other 59 participants were granted a rare retest to recover from the imbalance. That night, after the conclusion of the trial, Dale stood alone by a quiet fountain. Sophia approached and congratulated him on his exceptional performance. He offered his gratitude, crediting her teachings for his progress. To her surprise, he then invited her to join him at a festival being held in the city. She agreed to accompany him, though she privately believed that he was still too young to fully grasp the meaning of a date. Dale, on the other hand, thought to himself with a mischievous grin that perhaps this was what it meant to have a dark heart. Together, they arrived at the city's festival in Necropolis, which was brimming with lively celebrations and vibrant fireworks. Sophia asked whether Dale wasn't exhausted from the difficult trials. He responded that he was not and explained that he still had several days before the next challenge. A moment of silence passed between them. Dale observed the sky and remarked that the moon was particularly beautiful that night. Sophia agreed. He found it difficult to maintain the conversation, yet strangely, the silence between them never felt awkward. Perhaps it was because Sophia had always trusted him without hesitation, and for that reason he now found himself wanting to be closer to her. His thoughts wandered back to the moment he succeeded in reaching the third circle. At that time, he had encountered what Sophia often referred to as the scenery of the mind. To attain the third circle, he had needed to exceed the mana limits of the second circle through an event known as mana overflow. During this overwhelming release, he suddenly found himself in a strange, unfamiliar place. He wondered where he had arrived, until the echo of Sophia's voice resonated in his mind, telling him that no one could help but reveal the landscape of their inner world. He realized that he had entered his mental realm, the world of enlightenment. Within that void, he saw that his world had always been empty. And in that emptiness, the only figure to reach out to him had been his teacher, Sophia. Back in the present, under the glow of the festival lights, Dale looked at Sophia and realized that perhaps this was the reason he desired the woman who had illuminated his world. Suddenly, he declared his love for her. Sophia was startled and asked for confirmation, to which Dale repeated his confession. She responded with a gentle smile, embraced him, and told him that she understood and was very fond of him as well. Dale felt a deep sense of gratitude, thinking to himself that living a second life truly had its advantages. Several days later, the day of the 11th floor trial arrived. Dale acknowledged to himself that nothing had changed between him and Sophia since his confession. He assumed that she likely dismissed it as a mere infatuation, a childish crush from a 10-year-old boy. For now, there was nothing he could do about it, and so he turned his focus to the next trial. Eris explained the rules of this stage. It would be a one-on-one magical duel, and the victor would ascend to the 12th floor. Dale faced his opponent, Albert Rosenheim, a third circle master who made it clear that he had no intention of going easy just because Dale was a child. Dale, in turn, understood that in this trial, full magical power was permitted, and with artifact restrictions also lifted, the life point pendant no longer offered full protection. This trial was far more dangerous. Dale, now confident that nothing held him back, vowed to demonstrate the vast difference in power between them. Then, without warning, Albert attacked Dale and warned Dale to remain alert, and asserted that, unlike the fledgling academy graduates Dale had defeated earlier, he would not be so easily outmatched. Then, Albert began casting Dark Arrow, a volley of magical projectiles aimed directly at Dale, daring him to defend against the overwhelming attack. Albert continued his taunts, declaring that Dale's confidence would not carry him any further. With that, he rains down his arrow. Dale, however, moved with grace and precision, dodging each assault effortlessly. As he maneuvered, he noted internally that Albert had cheated by casting an offensive spell before the duel had officially begun. Still, no observers intervened. Dale concluded that they were simply curious to see how he would respond. He acknowledged silently that this was a world governed by absolute merit. With a bitter thought, he cursed the mages watching from the sidelines. Seizing the initiative, Albert summoned his undead minions with a dramatic chant, calling upon the bloodthirsty spawn of darkness to rise and swear eternal obedience to him. Dale observed the scene with mild boredom, questioning to himself where Albert had learned such a ridiculous chant. Yet he conceded that, at the very least, Albert's skills surpassed those of the fledgling mages he had previously faced. As Albert's undead surged forward, Dale continued to evade their attacks with practiced ease. Albert, growing frustrated, demanded to know how long Dale planned to keep dodging. He insisted that victory could not be achieved by fleeing and declared that if this was all Dale had, then he had already lost. In a final move, Albert commanded one of his undead soldiers to self-destruct. Confident in his supposed triumph, Albert prepared to celebrate, until he realized Dale had vanished. Confused and alarmed, he searched the field, uncertain of when or where his opponent had disappeared. Without warning, Dale reappeared behind him, taunting him for resorting to underhanded tactics against a child. Albert, stunned and disoriented, struggled to react. Dale acknowledged that Albert's initial surprise attack had been clever. He then revealed that he had used Wraith Transformation, a technique granted by the Cloak of Shadow, to evade detection and reposition. At that moment, Dale's shadow creatures stirred and began to hum with hunger, expressing a desire to consume Albert. Dale, amused, permitted them to indulge, though he warned them not to overeat. The shadows launched their assault, engulfing Albert, whose screams filled the chamber. Dale casually remarked that the creatures were likely overexcited due to their hunger. Eventually, Albert, overwhelmed and broken, begged for mercy. Dale ordered the shadows to retreat, and Albert collapsed unconscious. Eris, acting as observer, promptly declared Dale the victor of the first round. When Dale asked for his next opponent, the second round contestant immediately forfeited, stating openly that he simply wished to live. The count for the third round began, but from that point on, Dale advanced through the trials by default. All remaining participants forfeited except for one who chose to fight. Dale defeated that challenger without difficulty. With each passing level, Dale refined and perfected his mastery over all 3 magic circles. He then proceeded to defeat the tower's floor guardians one after another. By the time he reached the 20th floor, a truly worthy opponent finally appeared. The guardian of the 20th floor was the Headless Knight, a powerful construct personally crafted by a Black Tower Elder. Unlike any opponent he had faced before, this knight was an entirely different class of adversary. Among the observers, quiet concern grew. They speculated that even for someone like Dale, this might be his limit. Dale, however, simply smiled. Predictability, he thought, would be far too boring. The battle commenced between Dale and the Headless Knight. From the very beginning, the spectators watched in stunned silence. What they witnessed was beyond anything they had expected. Before long, the Headless Knight, the tower's final guardian, knelt before Dale. Dale gave a simple command, for the knight to destroy itself. Without hesitation, the knight plunged its own weapon into its body and collapsed on the ground. Dale reflected on this moment, impressed by the loyalty that had led the guardian to abandon its designated role. However, he quickly realized that he may have gone too far. He now understood the shock on the observers' faces. By submitting to him, the Headless Knight had effectively betrayed its creator, the Tower Elder. Such a display of allegiance implied that Dale had reached a level equal to that of a Black Tower Elder, an outcome he had not intended to reveal. Accepting that he had demonstrated enough, Dale turned to leave the tower. When questioned by the observers about his departure, he thought to himself that, while he could certainly continue ascending, there existed a line he would not cross. He understood that if he ventured any further, he would pass beyond the realm of human recognition and step into something unknowable. And with that decision, Dale's trial came to an end. The conclusion of Dale's trial marked the end of the Tower trials themselves. Upon the return of the Tower Master, Duke Saxon, and his son Dale, the entire Black Tower rose in military salute. Not only the noble families of Saxon, but every mage within the tower, including the elders, bowed before them in acknowledgement. Thanks to Dale's overwhelming accomplishments, the entire northern region began to unite gradually under the banner of House Saxon. Within the Duchy of Saxon, located in the northern reaches of the Empire, knights were seen training and celebrating, voicing their admiration for young Lord Dale and their loyalty to House Saxon. Following his safe completion of the Tower trial, Dale received a new directive from his father, the Duke. He was to lead a campaign against a horde of orcs. It was an overwhelming responsibility for a 10-year-old. Yet, not a single person questioned his capacity as a commander. As the legitimate heir to the Black Duke, Dale gradually began to unite the entire northern region under Saxon's influence. Later, Dale reported back to his father stating that they had eliminated 145 orcs. The Duke inquired about knight casualties. Dale replied that only 3 were lightly injured and that there were no other losses. The Duke asked whether he had used magic to shield them, but Dale denied this, crediting the success entirely to the swords of House Saxon. The Duke smiled, acknowledging his efforts and praising his leadership. Sir Helmet commented that the young lord had already grown accustomed to leading a regiment-sized knight unit. Dale humbly deflected the praise, attributing his progress to Sir Helmet's teachings. In turn, Sir Helmet recognized Dale's ability, noting that he had learned swordsmanship, tactics, strategy, and the art of war from him. He predicted that it would not be long before Dale commanded his own territory in a domain war. Dale welcomed the thought of a domain war, always eager to embrace a new challenge. The scene transitioned to Dale and Charlotte sparring. Charlotte lunged forward with determination as they exchanged swift and fierce blows. When the training ended, Dale remarked that her level had improved slightly. Charlotte responded with irritation, implying he spoke as though it had nothing to do with him. He asked if he had teased her too much. She reminded him that since becoming a third circle mage and passing the 20th floor of the Tower trial, all she had heard were endless praises for young Lord Dale. She asked whether he had grown tired of it. Dale reassured her not to worry and encouraged her, noting that she, too, would grow stronger. In his thoughts, he acknowledged that Charlotte's talent, especially at only 10 years old, was far from ordinary. Charlotte, frustrated, shouted at him not to treat her like a child. He replied that she was one. She countered that he was a child as well. With a smile, Dale teased her that he was already an adult. Later, Sir Helmet began a new lesson with Dale, stating that he would teach him the hammer and anvil tactic. He explained that this maneuver relied on cavalry breaking through the enemy's flank to encircle them, while infantry blocked the counterattack of the opposing cavalry. The tactic, he said, was inspired by the image of striking metal on an anvil with a hammer. Dale concluded that such a tactic was feasible only due to the presence of the Black Cavalry. Inwardly, he noted that regardless of the world, the nature of war did not change much. Dale then asked about the progress of Charlotte's training. Helmet responded that her training was excellent, though still not comparable to his. He explained that her foundational swordsmanship had taken form and that she would soon begin learning aura techniques as well as the Saxon family's unique sword style. However, he noted that there was one concern. Before Helmet could finish his thought, Dale interrupted, correctly guessing that the concern involved Charlotte's compatibility with their family's sword style. Basically, just as mages refine mana into magic through the formation of circles, knights similarly refine and store mana through internal discipline. Like mages forming towers, knights formed orders to preserve their swordsmanship legacies. Among these orders were the Black Cavalry, part of the Knight Raven Order of Northern Saxon. Their sword style emphasized overwhelming power. The problem lay in the fact that Charlotte's strengths were rooted in speed and agility. With her current skill set, she might just manage to join the ranks of the Seven Swords, but she would never reach the position of the first sword, once held by her father, the man once known as the Sword of Blossom. Sir Helmet expressed his regret that the Sword of Blossom's fighting style had vanished with the fall of the Night Kingdom. Dale quietly wondered if that sword style had truly disappeared from the world altogether. As Dale continued to establish his reputation through rigorous training and successful monster subjugations, an opportunity finally arrived to put his development to the test. The Duke received a messenger and was visibly shocked by the news he delivered. The messenger confirmed that Baron Voker, a neighboring noble, was claiming ownership of the Duke's copper mine and had formally requested a domain war. Dale immediately considered the absurdity of such a move. In this world, boundaries were often unclear, but for a low-ranking noble like a baron to challenge a duke was recklessness bordering on madness. The messenger continued, adding that if the Duke refused to surrender the mine and chose to engage in war, Archduke Brandenburg had pledged his support for the Baron in exchange for a share of the copper mine's profits. And the involvement would not stop there. Brandenburg intended to dispatch the St. Magdalena order to aid Baron Voker. Dale understood instantly what was happening. The Archduke had not forgotten the humiliation he suffered at the hands of Duke Saxon, and this was his chosen method of retaliation.